Sorry, Hana.
Can we see your face, Mandy?
Sure. Hello.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon and welcome to the session. Welcome to the session.
I'm just trying to help my mom get on.
Mapoko, please mute whilst you are trying to get yourself on.
Okay, sorry, Madam Speaker. What's going on? Mute. I must unmute you. Me.
I now have two people whom I cannot identify. There's 3008494, and there is Galaxy J7 Prime. If Galaxy J7 Prime is Councillor Boko, then I have 97727028222.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Good afternoon. It's Ntlaka here. So 3008494. That's me. I'm not sure why it's not identifying me by my name. I'm using my work laptop. Maybe that's why.
Okay. You'll have to type. You'll have to type your name.
I'm going to give her a name here.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Doc.
Thanks, Doc.
Right.
Okay. I have two unidentified people. I guess maybe the other one.
The Galaxy one. Let me also identify the Galaxy J7 Prime. Who's the owner of the Galaxy J7 Prime so that I can rename?
Commissioner Mazubugo.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Okay. We have gone past our starting time with 3 minutes. With 3 minutes, Siabulela is here. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Siabu. You are most welcome. Please unmute yourself so that we can hear your sound. Please, yeah.
Good afternoon, Speaker. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You are most welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Speaker, can you ask the person whose number starts with 977 the name so that I can rename the person here?
Yes, thanks, Doc.
977, it's me, Madam Speaker.
Oh.
The name?
977, it's me. Consultant Boko from COJ.
Thank you.
Why you can't hear anybody?
Madam Speaker, Ndatisha is also just logging in.
You've got your full complement now, Speaker. Can't hear you. Oh, shit. No. Can't hear you.
I've also lost audio from, I think the speaker said, I can hear you, Dr. Nyati.
Yeah, the speaker, her laptop has got a problem whereby she loses the voice from time to time. So she
Okay,
needs
can you hear me now?
Yes,
Can you hear
were
me?
on
Oh,
for
yes,
a few minutes.
okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, this laptop Ntaga must be taken for checking tomorrow because I changed the place. I thought it was the place, so clearly it's a laptop.
Is the microphone of the laptop?
Yes.
Noted, Madam Speaker. Noted.
Yeah. Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you very much, panelists. We are going to start now with our session because we are live and our followers are already following us. We are live on different platforms. We are live on YouTube. We are live on Twitter. We are live on Facebook, on different platforms. So it's important that we start on time, but we know that we are dealing with technology here. Sometimes you want to connect and you can't get connect. But as we get used to the new normal, we will have this problem of technology being resolved. Ladies and gentlemen, the past few months have been harrowing for the women in our country. We as women are faced with triple burden of oppression, having been discriminated against on the basis of our race, gender, and class. Added to this is the unprecedented levels of femicide that we bear witness to, especially now under lockdown. In fact, we are in the middle of a crisis as a country. This scourge is a profound and widespread problem in South Africa, impacting on almost every aspect of the life of the women and individuals that are LGBTIQ+. Gender-based violence and femicide, in particular, disproportionately affects women and girls. It is systematic and deeply entrenched in cultures and traditions in South Africa. I've had it in my heart, colleagues, for weeks now, that to tackle the issue of femicide and gender-based violence, given the surge that I have just highlighted. In our discussion about this topic as a society, we tend to focus largely on women. For example, we want to know who is being abused and how to get out of abusive relationship. We ask how these women should keep themselves safe and how to read the signs and how to get out of
There we lost
we
the
lost the
speaker
speaker.
again.
We've lost speaker again.
Mm.
Madam Speaker, yes.
Sipo,
We've lost speaker again.
I'll contact her.
please.
Mm.
I think we lost speaker again.
Yes.
Mm.
I think,
Yeah, you lost me.
yes,
Yeah,
please
we
go
lost.
back about a minute away. Just
You know, these speakers, they are disappointing me. Can you hear me now?
we can.
We can. Yes,
All
we can.
right. All right, apologies. I was indicating that I have invited men who are leaders in our society and whom are gender-based violence activists, because I believe that not all men are trash. I believe that we still have many good men left in our country, men who are willing to walk this journey with us as women. In fact, men who have been walking this journey with us for a while now, albeit in silence in the past. We have, however, seen that men are becoming more.
She's gone again.
We lost speaker again.
That's very bad. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Oh,
We lost-
apologies.
We can hear you now.
All right. I was saying that we have, however, seen that men are becoming more vocal about their roles in fighting this scourge, but also importantly, that are now also occupying a more activist role in order to fight against their own counterparts who are the abusers. I thought it is important to illuminate the voice of men in our society in highlighting the plight of women, children, and the LGBTQA plus community as it pertains to gender-based violence. It is key that as we move towards solutions, men themselves are at the forefront and solving these problems. In fact, when I had interviews this morning, the people were asking me, after this discussion and after this session, what next? Because people are tired of us talking, having sessions, but we do not come up with solutions. In fact, the more we talk, is the more gender-based violence increases. So people are actually looking for action. On that note, I wish to welcome all our powerful guests present today. We are joined by Ntate Sillo Makeka Ncube, who is no stranger to us as a multi-award winner actor, national and internationally. He is a director and gender-based violence activist, having established the Africa Men Rising campaign through the Sillo Makeka Ncube Foundation. Please indicate if you still hear me.
I do hear you. I do hear you.
All right,
speaker,
thank you.
we do. Yeah.
We are also joined by Ntate Patrick Shai, also no stranger to our country as an esteemed actor and director, and one of the first few voices who came out to speak on gender-based violence from male perspective. He is also the face of the Brothers Against Violence campaign, which in my view is a pioneer campaign that amplified the voice of the men when it was not popular. He is the founder of the men's social movement against all forms of gender-based violence called Khuluma Ndoda. We are also joined by Commissioner Mbuyiselo Botha, who is from the Commission of Gender Equality, which is Chapter 9 institution. As a gender-based violence activist, he is the founder member of the Men's Forum in South Africa. He previously worked at a Sonke Gender Justice and writes weekly for the Sowetan newspaper. Sino Siyabulela Gentile represents the voice of young men in our country. He is a multi-award winning South African youth leader, social activist, and author, and is the founder and president of the Not in My Name movement in South Africa. If you remember, a group of young men who marched in support of the fight against gender-based violence, the first we ever had seen in our country. Well, he is the man behind it. A very warm welcome, Putsiabu. I think I have already welcomed you. We have also Commissioner Mazibuko. Commissioner Mazibuko, who is also a gender activist and focusing mainly on people with disability. We are pleased to have you here, ma'am. Let me also then welcome all our councillors who are on the platform today. We are joined by Councillor Thandi Boko, the chairperson of GOD. In council is Gender Youth Disability, so it's called GOD in short, in the city of Johannesburg. We are also joined by Councillor Tanya All-John, who is also a gender activist in the city of Johannesburg. We are also joined by Butsilo Muloisane, who is also a councillor in our beautiful city, but not just a councillor. Councillor Muloisane is also a gender activist. He is focusing mainly on the abuse of LGBTIQ communities. So he will elaborate on that aspect. He's very passionate. I know that in council, in the last council meeting, he sponsored a motion on this aspect. Over and above our councillors, I am very pleased to welcome our young people, because our young people are the future of this country, particularly young women. We are joined by these two young women who are activists in their own right, and they will represent the voice of young women in the city of Johannesburg. We are joined by Tutugile Zuma, who is called Tutu most of the time. Tutu, you did not show your face. I'm not sure whether you are able to show your face. If you are able to, if you could please, yes, we can see you now. Hi, Tutu.
Hello. Greetings,
Yes,
everyone.
Thank you. We are also joined by Nomoya Mnisi, who
Madam, we're losing you there. Madam Speaker.
Please advise Esipo.
Yeah.
okay. At what point did you lose me? At Nomoya, I guess.
Nomoya, Madam Speaker.
At Nomoya. Okay, yes, I was introducing Nomoya, and I was saying that Nomoya and Tutugile are representing the voice of young people in our city, particularly young women. And let me also pass a special thank you to our very own committed partner, who ensures that every week, especially every Wednesday, we are able to air this show. I said akekho omnye ngaphandle kuka Dr. Nyathi. Siyabulela Bele. Thank you very much, Doc. Without wasting time, let us get straight into it. And without forgetting to acknowledge my office, Nhlakanipho Nedzamba, who has communicated with all of you here, and Sipho Masiho, who is the spokesperson and who is also behind all the streamings that we are having from my office. So without wasting time, let us go straight into it. As I said, I think the first question I would like to pose is to the commissioner, perhaps to help us understand what is the difference between gender-based violence and femicide. without channeling your response and the question. But I think here today we must talk about femicide, gender-based violence. What is the difference? What causes a man to be a monster that is capable of some of the atrocities that we have spoken about, to have sin against women? So all of us, we will be participating here, empowering our citizens and all our followers and on what to do, what to look for, and also what is the possible solution. And from today, how are we going to work together in finding that solution? Thank you very much. You are most welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
I hope you heard me up until the end.
Yes, we did.
Yes. Yes, we did.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, I thought maybe.
Let me unmute the commissioner. All right. Maybe, Speaker, you can choose somebody else.
Technology.
It's fine. Maybe let's get get you, Dr. Maybe to open the discussion.
Well, sorry, well, pity for the time, that important, man, man, not that clever. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I think what I would say in response to the difference between gender-based violence. Even I'm not really that familiar with with separating the two, but I think I will jump to answer the question on what is it that really turns men to end up becoming the monsters that they are, or to turn out to become monsters, that they are monsters. I think the biggest challenge that we have is sometimes men not really being able to identify what they are going through, identifying their own emotions, and also learning to have self-control. In our lives, we always think that expressing oneself is all that counts, but expressing yourself demands that in your expression, you articulate and make sure that you are understood. And most of the time that when we fail to be understood, then we resort to violence. And I think these are some of the things, and as we look at how we have been socialized and the environments that we live in, there's somehow that we've got to, change the way of dealing with things. And even, because this violence, you can also see it in how we burn buildings, we trash the place around, and there is no sense of upholding ourselves to a certain standard. But I think most importantly, it is because men at best are lacking of self-control. I'm reminded of, if you remember, who's this, Pistorius, Oscar Pistorius. And I used to love listening to, the psychologists when they analyze it. And one of the things that they emphasized was his lack of his inability to self-regulate. And I think one of the things that we come from a background and an environment that has been brutal to us. And in one way or the other, the only way we understand of responding to things is by being violent, and I think I will leave it for here for now.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ndate, for that powerful opening. Commissioner, I think we have two commissioners here. We also have Umamuno Masonto.
No? The host has stopped the screen from splitting examination speech of the
Can I ask you to mute their
So why Baba Bata?
okay.
Mama Mazibugo, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Well, femicide is when gender-based violence is perpetuated. I will say gender-based violence is when Ubaba Uncube has said it very well. There is power, and we come from a very violent history where we find men would correct even you as a wife, to correct you by being violent. And I think we agreed to say, as we were socialized, to say, kufanele ubekezele emzini. And men took it upon themselves to say they are self-correcting. And we see them being so angry up to the point where they want to they start by giving you a clap, kick, fist, and take your head against the wall. And tomorrow morning they say sorry. And it is there when we agreed to take a bunch of flowers, to take some chocolate to say sorry. But that situation will come back within a week. And it is the socialization to say, when we see as women looking at the robot, it is cautious. Instead of you coming out, you say it will be better. What will my children have? And because they were a source of financial background. So we come back. Gender-based violence was perpetuated by our history. And then now, women, let's stand up. Because now we are self-sufficient. We're doing it for economical empowerment. We will say the solution, Speaker and the audience, is us becoming economically empowered. I'm happy Councillor Thandi from Jodi is here. The young people must know, Tutikile must know that they don't rely on men. The 50-50 basis that even if we come to work, and gender-based violence is going to be perpetuated by us picketing, by us talking too much. Let's act. As you said, Madam Speaker, as we leave this platform today, we want action. People, men, we're not fighting one another. We have done nothing wrong, but we're saying time has elapsed. As we take it with corporal punishment, and us as women, we're not going to stand to be brutally killed because you are empowered to give economical empowerment to the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mama Zibugo. That was powerful. Maybe Ntate Shai, if you could also elaborate on why some men can be monsters. What makes them to be monsters?
Thank you, leadership. Let me also acknowledge my esteemed colleagues and all the political leadership on this panel and all South Africans. Maybe I should also just add on my little understanding of what gender-based violence is and the difference between gender-based violence and femicide. Let me say, gender-based violence, it's the commitment of any act that violates the other person based on their gender. It is a game of power, and the power can be played out emotionally, physically, financially, spiritually, religiously, psychologically. It takes many, many formats. It can take social media bullying or sending threats. It is gender-based violence. It is purely the violation of the other person's rights based on their gender. And it is a power game. Now, femicide. Femicide is simply the killing of a woman by an intimate partner. It is different to gender-based violence. But femicide, it is also a consequence of gender-based violence. Because my belief is that as soon as you start practicing perpetuation of violence or committing violence against a person based, a woman in particular, because of their gender, you are actually practicing the art of killing that person. When you call them name or names, they die a little each day. When you point fingers at them, you take away their self-esteem. When you begin to beat them up and throw them against walls and do that stuff, already you've begun the art of killing that person. So when femicide takes place, you have actually now taken a life. So femicide, it's taking life of a woman by a man. In this case, it would be maybe intimate partner violence or intimate partner femicide. And sometimes it is also committed by relatives of the woman. And yes, unfortunately, we can unlearn, violent behavior. We can learn as Majita, as men, we can unlearn, our violent conduct or perspective towards women. We can look into our cultures, we can look into patriarchy and nitpick the things that are harmful that we do as Majita, as men, and we can reverse the process. But with femicide, it's irreversible. So we have to stop gender-based violence, we have to stop domestic violence so that we do not arrive at a point where a woman has lost their life. And the only option we have becomes where we ceremonialize femicide through the lighting of candles and hundreds and thousands of matches. We have to stop. For us to stop femicide, we have to deal with the violent acts of men. And this would include focusing on the behavior and the conduct and the perspective of men in their relationships with women and children. I submit to the chair.
Thank you very much. Doc, I want this discussion to be robust and as free as possible. I don't want it to be too formal. So I'm request that even if don't wait for me to call you. If you feel that you have a point, just indicate and jump in.
Okay. Can I suggest that we hear from the young representatives here? They create a banning platform as the people who are feeling all of us are obviously concerned. That's why we're here. But it would be good that we hear from them on the ground, from the view of young people, and then we, just trying to understand the extent of this problem. Then we work towards solutions so that at the end, we've got certain actionables, but can we hear from them?
Okay, can one of the young people jump in?
I think Ms. Zuma is ready to talk.
Yes, I am. Good afternoon to all the panelists, to the speaker, and all the esteemed guests. I'll just say all protocol observed. My name is Tutu, and I just want to touch on one or two aspects around the issues of gender-based violence. I think as young women, we're clear that gender-based violence is the physical manifestation of patriarchy, and patriarchy is the system in which we live in. It's a system where women are oppressed, the oppression of women because of their gender. And I think while we try to tackle the issues around gender-based violence as we experience them on a daily basis, issues around the criminal justice system, issues around how protection orders are given, and how the fact that most of these crimes, especially femicide, happen post-protection order. As we tackle those issues around gender-based violence specifically, we must not lose sight of the fundamental challenge, which is the power relations within the patriarchal society that finds the woman oppressed in many and all aspects of life, whether you're talking about cultural, religious, social, and more especially economic. I think just to make an example, there are cultural practices that are accepted, that continue, but are heavily sexist in nature, whether you're going as far as talking about ugutwala, or whether you're talking about the day-to-day cultural practices that we practice in our homes, in our communities, in our villages, you know. And I think also, when we look at the social aspects, even just popular culture, when you turn on the TV, you look at adverts, you listen to songs, it's about objectification of female bodies, ownership of female bodies, a sense of entitlement over female bodies. And I think the way in which the society is structured, even the family, how do we raise our girl child versus our boy child? What do we teach our girl child and our boy children? Why is it that when it's time to make tea, it's expected that Tutu must go and make tea, but Tuputu Tabo must sit down and enjoy Tutu's tea that she's making? The socialization that we do to our children. I want to speak also about the issue around the economic liberation of women. I think it's fundamental because it's part of why women find themselves entrapped in situations where they have intimate partners who are monsters, because there's a dependency syndrome where the female is dependent on their male partner for economic survival of herself and her family. And I think that is fundamental because it's part of why it's so difficult to leave. Outside of the psychological challenges that exist, of course, and the other challenges that exist, the economic factor is very, very critically important. And I think as well, that Desilo spoke about the violent nature of our society. We must also note that in societies that have very, very big economic inequalities, you find pervasiveness of violent crimes. This was the case in Brazil. This is also the case in South Africa. And so the economic factor cannot be stressed enough. I also wanted just to touch a little bit on the issue of not all men are trash, with all due respect to all the men on the platform and as well as to the speaker. I think it's important that people understand why we say with conviction that all men are trash. We're talking about a system of patriarchy, and we're looking at men as the oppressors and women as the oppressed. So when we say all men are trash, we're not talking about Thabo and Sipho and whomever else. We're talking about men. We're talking about the system where there's an oppressor and the oppressed. It's similar how our forebearers and some of the freedom fighters who fought for our freedom, even today, how we sing and how they sang in the songs about Boers being dogs and killing Boers. It was generalization speaking about the system. And so when we say all men are trash, we're speaking about the patriarchal system. And I think it's similar to the Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter debate. Yes, all lives matter, but the crisis is in the Black communities where there is systematic violent oppression of Black men and women and our brothers and sisters in the USA. And so we say Black Lives Matter. It's not to say that all lives don't matter, but it's to say that there's a crisis here. And if all lives really did matter, why is there a crisis in the Black community? So I just want to clarify that when people hear us say men are trash, confidently and with conviction, we're talking about a patriarchal system. And so we say all men are trash. And then the last point I would like to make is that, you know, it's so defeating when you get, as young women, when you get married, you're told, ungabuye emzini, begezela, everything is stacked up against us, you know. And even if you find yourself in a position where you are a victim of gender-based violence, everything is stacked up against you. There's nowhere even to turn to, whether you're talking about your family, the police station, society as a whole, and the stigma attached to that. It's a very isolating and very difficult position, which is why it's so pervasive in our societies. And I think that, yes, there's Corona and COVID-19, and so of course there's limitations, but really we are inspired by the Black American brothers and sisters who've taken to the streets and who are on the streets in the length and breadth of the country. And I feel as young people, young women more especially, that's what we need to do, because during Corona or whether there's no Corona, Black women are on a permanent lockdown. We can't walk around at night. Even during the day, we must watch our backs. We must watch what we wear. We are in a permanent state of lockdown, with or without Corona. I'll stop it there. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much. Thank you, Doc, for calling upon young women. So the debate is becoming hot. You know, Tutu Doc, please, ladies and gentlemen, forgive me. Tutu and Umamuno Masonto, they reminded me of a quote when they talk about economic liberation of women and economic dependency, and the forgiveness, especially if you are given flowers, you forget what happened. So I just want to go through this quote. It's a submission by Superb. She says, got flowers today. That's the topic. And she says, I got flowers today. It wasn't my birthday or any other special day. We had our first argument last night. He said a lot of cruel things that really hurt me. I know he was sorry and didn't mean the things he said because I got flowers today. I got flowers today. It wasn't our anniversary or any other special day. Last night, he threw me into a wall and started to choke me. It seemed like a nightmare. I couldn't believe it was real. I woke up this morning sore and bruised all over. I know he must be sorry because he sent me flowers today. Lastly, she says, I got flowers today. It wasn't Mother's Day or any other special day. Last night, he beat me up again, and it was much worse than all other times. If I leave him, what will I do? How will I take care of my kids? What about money? I'm afraid of him and scared to leave, but I know he must be sorry because he sent me flowers. I got flowers today. Today was a special day. It was the day of my funeral. Last night, he finally killed me. He beat me to death. If only I had gathered enough courage and strength to leave him, I would not have gotten flowers today. Close quote. Thank you.
I was saying if we could hear from Nomoya and then followed by Butelo, and then I think Uprambuiselo Bota, and then the rest of the people afterwards.
Thank you.
Nomoya, do you want to give us? Nomoya? Okay. I think Nomoya?
Unmute me.
Yeah, you are okay now. You can speak.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Speaker, for coming up with such an initiative. I think as the society, we need to change the manner in which we raise our kids. One has always noted that as boys grow up, they have the mentalities that they have authority over girls because of what has been instilled in them from childhood. When playing, a boy child is given masculine toys, and then you will find that a girl child is given upapi or a teddy bear. So clearly, when you grow up as a girl, it says that this is where the society is preparing you, and this is where you belong. You belong to bear kids, and you belong in that space of ukuthi ukhulisa abantwana uhlale endlini. While men are given toys ukuthi ukuba afema, ukuthi they can do things that are more powerful than girls. One more thing that one has also noted is the colors that are aligned with girls. As girls, we are aligned with very soft things, like you'd find your pink, your purple colors, while men are given those colors of authority or blue ganje. So a boy child is raised never to accept defeat. When he fails, he is told that uzokhula ube yindoda enjani, that failed to execute his tasks, and they are raised with the mentality that they are the best amongst other gender, and no one will ever compete with them. So that's why it is very difficult now when they grow up to be men. ukuthi accept when they are defeated, to even accept when competition is very high from other gender, then they resort ekuthenini bashaye the other gender or benze noma yini abayifunayo, because that's how they were raised and that's what was instilled in them. If umntana womfana ekhula endlini, those who grew up elokishini, you would know, mawubuya endlini ushayiwe, you are turned back by your parents. Ukuthi hamba ubuyele emuva uyoyilwela. So I think also how we discipline our kids has an impact on how they will grow up to be. You know, how the child is being raised will also affect the community, or in most instances, their behavior will be displayed through their interaction with others. You know, we need to nurture our children in a manner that they will be able to live with other humans in society. Because as women, honestly, Doc, we are tired of living in fear, not knowing whether we are next to be raped, not knowing whether we are next to be killed. We are not free to wear what we want, because there are men who think that when I wear a short skirt, and I am enticing him. You know, we can't move around in a manner that we want, because our lives are at risk. We have been marching for a very long time, Doc. We have been calling AMA meetings, you know, and now we have reached a point as young women where we are saying we are tired. We are tired of speeches. We are tired of programs, because we do all these things, but we continue to die. So let me pause there, Doc. Thank you.
Doc, you were once again on mute. We couldn't hear what you were saying.
Doc, we can't hear you. Unmute.
Okay. No, sorry. I was asking Nomoya. She's saying, you know, young women are tired of the marches. They are tired of all the things that have been done to try and deal with this matter. So I was trying to see if there are any ideas that are coming through about what needs to be done. But while she's thinking about that, Muchelo, I think you must then give us a take so that we can move. There's many people that have not had an opportunity to give their views.
Thank you very much, Doc, and good afternoon to fellow panelists. I'm going to touch on two aspects.
We can't hear you, Muchelo.
No.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
All right. I'm going to touch on two aspects. And
okay. Can you sort out your sound at this moment? Let's go to Siabulela from Not in My Name.
There's a spot where we're able to hear Ukansala Muloisani. If you stick there when you come back. Thanks.
All right. Can we hear from Siabulela from Not in My Name? Okay, let me unmute him. All right. Siabulela,
am I audible now?
Yours.
Yes. Siabulela talk. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. Greetings, everyone. And it's really a pleasure to be part of this conversation, which is very, very important, especially at this time. Look, I'd want to start by touching base on what Sis Tutu said about patriarchy, which is a system, obviously, which is a social system that gives power to men over women. So what it does is it puts men on top of the social hierarchy, and it puts women at the bottom. This is the very same system that teaches boys to be aggressive at all times, and it teaches young girls to be submissive. But what is important to note about this patriarchy, that is the system, and like any system, in order for us to deal with it effectively, it must fall. It is also important to note that as we try to dismantle patriarchy as a system, we need to call on everyone, both men and women, because patriarchy it has survived for so long because it has not only benefited men, there are women who are benefiting from patriarchy, and there are men who are actual victims of patriarchy. So we really need to be careful when we talk about that. And also, just on patriarchy, something that toxic masculinity feeds into patriarchy is that one, we need to say, Uti, there's nothing wrong with being a man. And I get worried at times with our messaging. Ubudoda or masculinity or manhood is not inherently evil. There's nothing wrong with being a man. The problem becomes when it's toxic, this masculinity. And we need to understand that there's different types and kinds of masculinities. I'll just mention a few quickly before I hand over to the next speaker. So there's what is known as hegemonic masculinities, which is the most dominant form of masculinity, and that is the problem in our society, because it is aggressive, it is competitive, and it's powerful, and it's very, very, very violent. But also there is another form of masculinity which comes in a form of subordination. So these are types of men who do not live to the society standards of manhood or what the society perceives as ideal manhood. So these masculinities do not meet the societal expectations. Thirdly, and that is where you find most of our brothers who are in the LGBTIQ community. They fall under subordinate masculinities because, Estratin would say to them, "Oh, your daughter, you are weak, you are this and that." And then there is complicit masculinity. Then here we have a problem, and I think this is where most of our interventions and programs must be focused on, because these are the men who are accepting the rewards of hegemonic masculinity or the rewards of patriarchy, but they do not defend it, they do not speak against it. It's those people who passively accept the way things they are as they are. It's as though they're sitting on the fence. And maybe lastly to mention, one writer speaks of marginal masculinity. So this type of masculinity appears in areas of exploited and oppressed groups of people. Those ones, because of class, race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, they are oppressed. So when we say that we have a problem of men or masculinity, or when we attempt to challenge the psyche of violent masculinities, we need to understand that ubudoda or manhood in itself is not static. It's not a standard. It's something that is a dynamic. So it changes. And I like how Usis Nomoya also mentioned that the resocialization or the socialization of our boys is important, because I always say to people when I speak, just in closing, you can go to any hospital now, go to a maternity ward, and when you get there, you must ask them to show you all the newborns and point out for me, okay, this one is going to be a rapist, this one is going to be a killer, this one is going to be a woman beater, this one is going to be a pastor, this one is going to be an actor. You can't, it's impossible. So that tells you that something happens when the child grows, that process of socialization, that's where it comes. So we make these people we call monsters through the process of socialization. So what happens is that the social scripts that are toxic are passed on from one generation to the other, allowing new members to take part in this toxic cycle we now call the society. So as we are having this discussion, I just want to say that masculinity is not static, and then it is a process that is influenced by socialization. And in order for us to fight and win the battle against gender-based violence, the battle against intimate partner femicide, is that we need to change how we socialize our boy children and the conversation that we are having. And lastly, the messaging is very important. While I understand that the men are trash thing, it's a cry for help and it's a mobilization tool that says all men must stand up and do something, and also, demonstrate the pain and hurt of women, it also becomes important, and to a certain extent, it regresses the work that we do, those of us who are having conversations with boys. You cannot want young men to be positive contributors in the society when you constantly tell them that they are trash. So it becomes very important how our messaging is put across. But as I said, I do understand where it comes from. We just need to use it wisely. I think I should stop there, Speaker. Thank you very much.
All right. Can we hear from Ubabumbu Iselopota?
Okay. I also see, Doc, that Councillor Mulusane is back. Maybe after Ubabu Bota, then Mulusane can come back.
All right. Thank you. Babu Bota.
Can you hear me, Doctor?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Well, I just want to start off by saying that it's important to affirm this messaging, Doc, that when we say men are trash, Doc, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
We can
Doc,
hear you.
I was saying, Doc, that we just to affirm what Tutukile was saying about the message, men are trash. It's not about individual men. It's about the system. It's about the structure. So I think, Jantile, it's important that we understand that the majority of men in this platform, when we leave our
Brambuiselo, can you switch off your camera?
There's one worry that we're concerned with. Doc and colleagues, Speaker, we are worried. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Say, can you switch off your camera so that your bandwidth allows you to be audible? Just switch off the camera part, and then we can hear you because you are breaking.
Doc?
Yeah, switch off your camera, then you'll be able to be audible. You are breaking.
Are you able to hear me, Doc?
We can hear you. All of us can hear you.
Yeah. Well, can I continue, Doc?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. All I'm saying, Doc, let me start off by saying that, firstly, that just to reaffirm what Tutukile was saying, which I thought was profound, and which is that we must never mistaken the notion that when we say men are trash, which, by the way, I align myself to, it's not about individuals, it's not about us, colleagues, it's about the system that privileges us. So the messaging has always been that we must focus on who gets raped every day, who gets violated every day. And I was making an example that when we leave our homes as men, we are only worried that I'll be mugged, I'll be hijacked. But women, every day, whenever they leave home, their homes, in the workplace, the constant worry is she will be violated and she'll be raped. So I think that context is important so that we do not always think that it is directed to individual men. Having said that, Doc, I think, colleagues, I want to talk about, as a Commission for Gender Equality, we need to ask the question, is it not about time that we do not speak to the girl child, but because the girl child does not rape herself, the girl child, colleagues, does not sexually harass herself. So the point I'm making this afternoon is that it's important for us to focus deliberately on the boy child at early childhood, that we say to the boy child that, look, it is her body, she must be respected. I think we must move away from saying to the girl child, don't walk at night, sit properly, wear properly. All of this messaging, they perpetuate that there is something inherently wrong being a girl. So I want to argue this afternoon that we need to deliberately focus on who is the perpetrator. And that perpetrator is not the girl child. The perpetrator is the boy child. So as I raise my 4 grandchildren, my message is not to my granddaughter, Zukanye Kakambe. My message is to my 3 grandchildren who are boys, is to say to Liregu, is to say, Liregu, the problem is, as you grow up, when you look at Zukanye Kakambe, you must respect her body. Unless we do this, colleagues, we will continue to in fact be inappropriate, will continue to in fact speak to the wrong audience. And the wrong audience is that when our messaging focuses on the survivor, and the survivor in this instance is the girl child. But I also want to say that, colleagues, and it's a very important point is that, I mean, the city council, I hope that this groundbreaking initiative, it's not only, and I'm moving towards what one would call what are the solutions? What can we do? Imagine what would happen, Madam Speaker, in your office if you say one Saturday that I want to have a program as the Speaker of Johannesburg Council. I want to have a program where fathers bring their sons, to a conversation, that the City Council of Johannesburg will put in resources, it will put in money, that men who are fathers would come in and dialogue with their boys, because that's where the message is. And also that the City Council would have programs that says, why are gays and lesbians, intersex, bisexuals are killed in our society? One of the missing things is when we talk about GBV, we tend to focus on what one would call a heteronormativity message. By that I mean we think that being heterosexual is the norm. Being heterosexual, it is what God has designed or devised us to be. So our messaging, Madam Speaker, must also, in a very deliberate manner, in a focused manner, and say that there are women who are gays who are killed. There are men women who are lesbians, and men who are gays who are killed simply and purely because of their sexual orientation. So we must never, in fact, we must move away from this heteronormativity because it is toxic on its own. And what we do is, in our churches, in our council meetings, all we do is violence against women, violence against children. We never talk about, Speaker, violence against gays, lesbians, intersex, bisexual, queer in our communities and focus on them. So I want to submit as I end that there must be visible, practical programs, Madam Speaker, like the one I've suggested. Imagine where you would have a breakfast on breakfast with fathers and their sons, where in those breakfasts, the message is not the normal message. The message is that it is you who is the problem. It is you who don't respect Zukanye Kakambe's body. So I think sitting here, working at the commission, it will not help us to continue in the same traditional, conventional manner, colleagues, without saying, let us, in fact, redirect these messages to who is needed, and that person is, in fact, the boy child who grows up believing that the girl child's body is a fair game. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker.
Yeah. Madam Speaker, you mentioned somebody who's an activist on the LGBTQIA. Can we have that person? I'm not sure who exactly was the person. Just to tie up with what Brambuisel has just said. And then I think afterwards we must hear from Tanya, Oljon, and Angel Hart, because they have not shared anything.
Thank you very much, Doc, and good evening to fellow panelists. So one of the biggest problem, and as Mr. Botha was saying, is that when we speak about violence, we so much focused on violence directed towards women, but we forget that we have people who identify as queer. You know, the queer name, it encompasses all the sexual orientation or the sexual identities of men who identify as gay, lesbian, women who identify as lesbian, and other genders. The challenge in the queer community is we live in a cultural norm. We live in a society where we have cultural norms where if a boy is seen washing dishes, you're already labeled as either gay. When a boy is seen cleaning the yard, you know, you are automatically, there's this assumption that you are either homosexual or you are unsure of your sexuality. And we need to also start having the conversation around the internal homophobia in the LGBTIQ community. Because before we would want to go outside and want a conversation with society, we need to start dealing with the homophobia within us as gay people. What I mean by that is the queer community has a problem in terms of class segregation. You have your urban individuals who live in your gated areas, you have individuals who live in your townships and informal settlement, and you have individuals who live in your rural areas who are at the high risk of violence. And when a gay man is killed, or a lesbian woman has been raped, or a transgender female or male has been killed, we are nowhere to be seen as activists and as people who identify as queer to support the individual at court or champion the rights of the LGBTI. We're very quiet because I live in Sandton. I'm in a very safe place. So the issue of someone who lives in Alex does not identify with me. And it's a culture that needs to come to an end. And the pronouns in terms of the LGBTI community, you know, there are various pronouns. The fact that as Dimakato Butilo Moloisani, a councillor in the city of Johannesburg, I'm a gay person, does not automatically mean that a person must refer to me as a female. I still prefer being referred to as a male. So there is this culture amongst society where, you know, especially in the township, where when one is gay or when one is lesbian, we have this norm that people have adopted to want to identify people by sexualities or, you know, genders that they do not want to identify with. Respect the fact that I am a gay man, I still identify as male. And you know, I think as a councillor, one of the things, and Madam Speaker would know is, and Councillor Zizi would know, is the city also had underwent a dialogue discussion with the LGBTI community to find out what are the issues in the community and how do we as a city of Johannesburg work with the community in finding solutions and addressing the issues. And you would pick up that, one, you speak to people in Sandton and who would not want to speak to the issues that a person in Alex is facing. And that's a culture that needs to come to an end. The families that we come from as well, you know, various families would rather have a child who's a rapist and hide them, but disown a child who's gay or lesbian. And the problem starts. We need to start having educational programs that are going to assist communities to start understanding the existence of queerness, and that queerness is not something that one wakes up in the morning and say, oh, by the way, I've decided to wake up and I'm gay. You know, we need to start having awareness programs that will speak directly to the community. The other aspect in the queer community that we face is the lifestyle diseases. You know, a lot of queer individuals live with HIV and AIDS, and it is because many of them get disowned by their families and they sell their souls to generate a form of income, either as male sex workers, and they contract various diseases. and we do not have the proper infrastructure in terms of targeted health care that targets specifically the queer community. So, having conversations, yes, it helps, but let us come up with solid solutions in terms of, and when you apply for a job, your application form will either ask you, are you male or female? What if I do not want to identify as a male? I want to identify as a them or they. Why aren't those included? And it's something that we need to have a conversation around. Home Affairs needs to look at allowing the queer community to identify in a manner that they feel comfortable in.
Yeah. Speaker, I just want to suggest something that maybe we have a session in the near future that looks at the broader issues of LGBTQIA, because I think we won't be able to do justice to that part, because today it was about gender-based violence and the femicide associated with it. So now, just to make sure that we give due attention to both topics, well, they are big topics on their own. So I'm just asking that if Dimakato is okay with that, we park issues around LGBTQIA. Yes, they are related to matters of GBV, but maybe we deal with the one that is the burning one at this moment, not that the other issues are not burning as well. I don't know, that's my suggestion.
Hello?
Hi,
Yes, I agree in terms of the broader discussion on the LGBTQA+. However, they are also victims of gender-based violence as well. Yeah, maybe we just discussed that aspect, but I agree with you that the unpacking, like Councillor Muloisane raised very important issues of identity and how do you choose to be called or identified, and the Home Affairs issue and that. I think I agree with you there that we need another session for that. But in terms of violation of rights and gender-based violence, this community is also, they are also victims of such.
Yes.
Yeah,
Can we have Angel Hart or Tanya or John? Because I want us to work towards solutions. What solutions? How do we turn around the narrative?
There's also Tandip Bokozizi who has not spoken after them.
Okay. All right.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I really tried to multitask now because I was in another meeting as well. But mine is basically to say, look, we have been speaking about all of this for a very, very long time. And I want to appreciate that the President has now said that this is also an epidemic. So to me, it is all of these things, or these things that I've heard while I was listening to you as well, is things that we have spoken about. And I want to agree that we have to find a way forward. Not marches, not candlelights, not all of those things that we have been doing for the last how many years now. And this is also gender-based violence is something that it attracts something that will, it's like a season. It's like a season. We'll have this now and the next few months again, it's something else. It's not a constant thing that we keep on, or we want to say we are going to concentrate on this thing called GBV. Mine is, we should start with our boy child and our girl child. GBV has got no race, it's got no gender, and it's got no class. With us, I'm a Kasi girl, I come from the Kasi. And where we started was, we were raised without fathers. We were looking for that love from someone else, a father figure. And this is things where we maybe take it for granted that we don't really go in there and we really see where does this really come from. As someone said here earlier on, that you cannot go into a maternity ward and decide who is what. That is so true that he's saying. All of this has also got to do with economical stand in your community, because you need the money, so you keep quiet to these things. You don't say anything. It's also that we are trapped in this situation. So mine is, I want to ask here on this platform, is it that we are going to continue the way we're continuing now to have these meetings? Because I can also tell you that the people, the less fortunate, or the more people that are really being abused out there, are the ones that cannot sit on a Zoom session and talk about it because they don't have the data. We in a new what do you call this thing? We're in a new era now with this COVID-19 thing, that we cannot meet and talk to the people on the ground. We cannot go and knock at someone's door to say, are you okay? Because we can't do that. What is it? How do we assist people? Because I can tell you, my neighbor might be in this situation, but I can't go and knock, because that is not what we want to do. So we need to find a way. I agree, we should maybe do street committees and find out, do we know our neighbors? How well do our neighbors know us? But how do we say that, what is my part in this? How do I bring, because I don't want the talks anymore, I want the do. What do we do to stop all of this? The LGBTIQ plus, them being killed in every corner, and no one knows about it. My sister, my aunt, my granny, they are being also abused, but we don't know about it. We only read of it in the newspapers, or we see it on TV. But it happens in here, in our communities, but we just do the talking, we don't do the doing. And that is where I want us maybe to please find out, how do we end this epidemic? How do we find ourselves to be ambassadors for our neighbors, for our sisters and our brothers, and the men out there that is going to assist us? How are they going to assist us? Because we are single mothers as well. We are women on our own, and we're not saying that it's just the men that are doing this, because we get women that are also abusing men, but they are not talking about it. And that is also something that we must really look at. But our main thing is, we need to start in schools, in creche, in your ECDs, to teach our girls and our boys how to respect each other. And I think that is where we should maybe start this thing. Let me pause for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tanya. Can we hear from Angel Hart? But I think we need to switch now to, maybe 3 or 4 possible actionables. What are the things that need to be done to actually change this thing around, beyond the marches? Beyond everything else? What are the practical things? So I would like us to really focus on that. And as I'm saying that, I just want to say something about there's a term that is called, or a phrase that says, hurt people. Do we think some of the people who are causing these atrocities are people who have been carrying some hurt from the past, and they have not been able to deal with that, and they are actually now projecting it and messing up other people who've got nothing to do with what hurt them? No, I'm just leaving it as a statement. I'm not saying it's true or not. Angel Hart, can we hear from you?
Afternoon. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you. I'm just going to address the question that you just asked now. I do believe that most people who are hurting, it's people who have been hurt. Because you have to go through something for you to take it out on someone. If you have never experienced that, it is almost close to impossible for you to actually hurt somebody. I've been working with young people for quite some time now. There was a case in one of the schools that I've been working with. And then one of the students there, he was a 14-year-old boy in grade 8. He was talking to girls, telling them he's going to rape them, he's going to beat them up and things like that. Until this one day, he followed this particular girl at home. Then the girl quickly ran. Luckily, the father was there at home. And what the father did, he came out, he asked the girl, what's going on? He's like, no, there's a boy who's always telling me that he's going to rape me and so forth. He went out, he beat up the boy. As soon as he's done, he went to the school the following day. He's like, I beat up this boy. I am so angry. This is what the boy did. So now the school, they took action and then they said to the child, bring your parents. You can't come to school anymore. So which is number one, not a solution. Okay, the boy went back home. They called in, the parents are not coming until finally the grandmother came to the school. The grandmother was like, you know what? I have a big problem at home. This boy's mother is raped. They stay in a shack. This boy's mother's raped in front of the boy. This boy is being beaten by the stepfather. So now boys were also raised in a way that they can't say anything. Whatever pain that they feel, they have to take it out. So now the question is, how are we helping the young boys when we are saying the young or the men out there, they are trash? We can't bring solution with beating them up. Now the solution needs to be, let us speak. Because when you speak, there's something about speaking that brings liberation. So now they are shattered in, and everything that they do, they take it out by beating. It doesn't matter whether it's a girl or boy. There are women also, you know, who beat up men, who beat up young boys because they're hurt inside. So now the solution here is, how do we bring out the men that will speak out and not say the solution is to, you know, go work on your car, you know, go be a mechanic or do something like that with your hands. We need to say, boys, young boys, speak up. When you have a problem, speak up. Because now this is what we teach girls. Hence, whenever girls, they have a problem or they go out in the street and then there will be a boy who will be asking them out, they will come back at home and say, Mama, Papa, you know, there's this guy who's busy following me. There's a car that's following me. But then with our boys, they are silent.
All right.
So now here, yes, I would propose that.
Because I want to go to Ntate Shai around this issue of how do we get men or boys to actually have a positive relationship with their emotions so that rather than suppressing them, they actually open up, they allow themselves to be vulnerable and be able to deal and seek help about their issues. So I want him to talk around that, but we can finish up, Angela.
Particularly, I'm just going to say, when we say you are trash, there is no way that I'll come out and speak. How do you expect me to speak when you already have concluded my position within you? So we need to find solutions where we are also involving the ones who are not doing, who are not perpetrators.
Yes.
How do we get them?
Right.
Because now we can talk about this thing, but if we still going to, you know, kill them, press them down, we're not helping, we're not bringing a solution.
Yes.
And then I'm still gonna go back to, I heard one of the speakers was talking about young girls. We can't say they mustn't dress like this. We still need to go back to basics that we can never leave behind. We still need to address ourselves in a certain manner, irregardless of.
Okay. Thank you, Angel Hart. I think
what we say men can do.
Okay. Can we now move on to Ntate Shai? Ntate Shai.
Doc, can I chip in before you move on to Ntate Shai? Can we allow the chairperson of GOD, Methandi Poko?
Okay. All right, but can you give specific focus, Speaker? Can you give specific focus, because I want us to be focused on solutions now. So as she's going to talk, direct her. Maybe she can talk about how do we parent, differently, or she can talk about how do we, change society in expectations around, the boy child and the girl child. But let's have somebody now talking,
yes,
solution orientated. Yeah, please.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. I was saying let's give Methandi first, then we go to Ntate Shai then.
Okay.
Methandi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I think the role of the men in fighting gender-based violence, the men must start changing, Madam Speaker. Their conversation, they must start changing their conversation. When they speak about women, example, men can discourage other men to make remarks about women's body. When the women passes them, Madam Speaker, they should stop making remarks about their bodies. Baze bashayine nkwele, Madam Speaker, baze batupakile. They should stop that. Men should take an initiative, Madam Speaker, by reporting.
Kuluma, ma'am. Mam Tandi. She was still saying guys must not flate when a lady is passing around, or situpakile or situdlu. I hope she can come back. I don't see what happened to her. Okay, can we go to Ndate Shai, and then when she comes back, she can come after Ndate Shai. Ndate Shai, how do we socialize men differently?
Thank you very much, Doc. Madam Speaker, before I respond, I'd just like to say we belong to a greater movement as a South African Men's Parliament. And I would like to have a conversation with the speaker outside this, that we host this session with Takwani Rime and bring all the giants on board. But we'll have a conversation.
Sorry, Madam Speaker. I'm having a problem like a network.
Okay, Mama, can you come after Ndate Shai, because he's already on the floor? Then as soon as he finishes, then you come back, because we lost you.
Hello.
Okay, can I? Oh, it's a
Hello, Madam Speaker. Hello, Madam Speaker.
You can talk, Ma'am. Kuluma, Ma'am. Ma'am Tandi. I think she's got network problems. Ndate Shai, I think you must continue.
Thank you, Doc. I will try and be brief. However, it's going to be very difficult. I think over the years, since the introduction of the Domestic Violence Act, if we look back, there's been an escalation of the violence against women and children. And maybe we should not call it violence against women and children, because it has escalated to the point where, we should call it by what it is. It is the killing of women and children by men. And therefore, what I've noted is that while we have a plethora of men's forums and organizations, we have not been able to attract or encourage men who have perpetuated crimes against women to own up and come out and say we did wrong, and therefore we are sorry and we need help with what we have done. So, because, and you know why? Because once you come out, Doc and Madam Speaker, as a reformed or perpetrator, you have a stigma and you live with that stigma. And that stigma is also attached to your partners, to your children. So men do not come out, men do not want to own up, men do not want to come and say, I want to be like Ndate Shai and say, I have also done wrong. But I want to say, if we are to re-socialize ourselves to a point where we take responsibility as Majita, and we encourage those that have done wrong to come out and say that there is 500 of us who have done wrong. And we say to the nation and the women of this country to say, we have done you wrong, and therefore we need to be forgiven, and these are the things that we have done wrong. We will be focusing on a very beautiful program where we'll be encouraging other men to stand up and take responsible position on things that we've done. Secondly, we will be taking the stigma out of owning up and being responsible. And thirdly, we will be saying we don't want you to become a perpetrator by virtue of the fact that you've been caught. We want you to become an activist, to work against changing, be an activist against patriarchy. You know what benefits patriarchy have given you as an individual, as a man in our society. You know how you have benefited out of that. How can we learn from your past experiences? We tend to speak of perpetrators only after the fact. Hence, we speak of femicide. And femicide, I will say, it's after the fact, after a woman is killed. Only then is it a femicide. And yet, if we say Majika, Zoralang Ritoringa, Sia, you know very well that we want to say, not in my name. So we don't only want you to kill, say you will not kill in our name, but we want to encourage you to change in our name, to say, I take a responsible position, just so we don't have to march to courts, so that we don't have to light up the candles. So the resocialization, Yamajita, Madam Speaker and Chairperson, need us to speak to men in our homes. I submit that. Rona as we hardly know who our sons are dating. We hardly know who our daughters are dating. We are refusing to accept that most of these relationships are material based, with exceptions, of course, where we find men raping 6-month-old kids, 15-year-old kids. They don't depend on these guys. So there's a slight difference because Babambasika, it's pure mental illness, pure. But if we get to know who my son is dating, then I get to invite my son's girlfriend, and I take the both of them through and say, La Washai, things that are not accepted are A, B, C, D, E, F. You, as my prospective daughter to be, I expect you to speak out when my son treats you in a manner that dehumanizes you, in a manner that is harmful to you. When my son uses language that is harmful, I need you to come out and say, my prospective father-in-law to be, this is what your son is taking me through. But then we take it even further. Let us encourage bilaterals between the family of the boy and the family of the girl. It cannot be business as usual that they dating and me, I don't know the family, my son's girlfriend. I've never seen them. The only time we're going to be talking about it's when my son has finally killed this wonderful daughter of another family. So let us begin to open our families, have truly open societies where we can relate as parents. When they go out dating, the parents should know that our children are going out on this and that and that and that. But also we're saying families, because I see a trend. Once a woman is killed, the social media gets a buzz with the conversations, it's a Facebook, it's a WhatsApp, that my friend posted ABCD. So even friends needs to be open up and be socialized to be proactive in the fight against gender-based violence before it even gets to femicide. I've just shared with the speaker, so one of the cases that are posted where a woman is being, threatened with life, and the threat comes from a man who says, "I will do to you what was done to Tsehofat." So even families, we know about this as uncles, as bo auntie. I get worried when families, the perpetrators, go out to support the perpetrator in court. I get worried. What is then our position? Are we only going to be socialized or riled to stand up against gender-based violence and femicide only when it comes to visit? Only when it comes to our doors, that we will then understand the pain. I want to say, Chairperson, and Madam Speaker and colleagues, that we have to embrace the pain of each and every man. We have to make sure that when a woman is killed, the pain of the father, the pain of the brother of that child is captured and told so that other men can understand how much pain they bring to their fellow brothers. At the moment, the way we go about it, we make it a woman's pain. It is women whose pain is captured. It is almost as if these kids that are killed, these girls that are killed and raped, they don't have a father, they don't have a brother. So we are not putting men in the space where they can also express that pain. It is also about men pain. So I want to come back and say socialization also requires us, and I want to amplify the comments made and the calls made by Sia, and I think there's a lady who also made that comment. The toxicity in our composition study messages, it's very dangerous. We may be bold on public podiums, in our marches, in our sloganeering, by name calling. But we don't realize how much danger those messages are. Men cannot continue to be called dogs. We come from a period where we were saying men were calling women this and that, and we've seen how this has stopped. It is very rare to hear a man calling umuntu wesifazana ngamagama angekho right. But Tina, we swinging the pendulum, where now we say it is okay for women to use vulgar in addressing men. You can imagine what goes on in the mind of a perpetrator who is about to kill this woman by saying to the victim, I will show you what a dog does. This is what a dog does. I'll show you what trash does. So we don't feel the brunt. But if women victims could tell us, if they could tell the stories, they would accuse us of having made these people very angry. Remembering also that it is not the people that we march with who commit these things. It is people we leave behind who are angered by some of the statements we make. So it is required of us to re-socialize society, men and women, to embrace the fact that all of these women who are killed and raped, they are also children of men. So we cannot call a father whose daughter has been killed and call him trash. We cannot reduce his pain to that level. We must embrace it and begin to work together as Batu to say it is a societal problem, it is a family problem, so that we are able to say when a woman is killed, we don't march to Pretoria, to the union buildings, but we march to the house of the perpetrator. And if we have to hold memorial services there, to put pressure on the perpetrator, the families would know that there is no need, there is no justification for them to go out and get a lawyer for their son and get isangoma for their son. They would know, even those whose boys have not committed acts, they're going to work against it to say, we don't want you through your actions of raping a woman, of killing a woman, to bring this attraction to our household, to our names. So our activism also need to change. And I think Mbuselo already that it can not always be about the victim. It is about changing that environment, rehabilitating that environment, and militating against the enablers. And I want to close by saying, patriarchy, yes. And I think Sia and some of us have said that it benefits both, and then it is harmful to both. I want to look at the whole, the customary law, how the customs have been applied, how women are forced through tradition to take up names and surnames of their partners, just to be qualified to be called wife, umama Shai, umama Dlamini, and all that. And also, we see how These are some of the enablers. How a woman carries a child for 9 months. But when the child is born, the woman has got no right to name the child. It is the right of the man to name the child. Can't you find funny names, Ubabu Zobuye? Because by the time the woman gives birth, Ubaba Ragabuye. When they ask the woman when she's giving birth, what is the name of the child? Ubabu Zobuye. Then the child ends up with a name, funny name like Ubaba Uzobuye. So Tina Majita, we have to be cognizant of the toxic cultural beliefs and practices that benefits us and begin to socialize. Tina Singamachita said, how do we really change the patriarchy so that we take out the toxins within patriarchy? And then and truly, there is nothing wrong with being a machita. It's just some of us, how we carry ubudota betu. We can do so much, but let us embrace the fact that kibontate libomme who go through this pain. Let us begin to project the pain yabontate. That way, we'll be re-socializing machita. That remember, what you are doing to this man, it could happen to your daughter tomorrow.
Okay.
If you don't change.
That is right. You must wrap up now. Let's get other people. Please.
Yes, I submit to the chat.
Please. Ndate Silomake?
I think, Doc, don't you want to go back to Mam Thandi maybe because she was ready?
Okay. Okay, we can go to her before Brasilo. All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Auntie Thandi, I hope your
Thank
line
you
is
very
better
much.
now.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Can you hear me, Madam Speaker?
We can hear
Yes,
you very well, Mama.
We can hear you now, Ma.
Yeah, Madam Speaker, I think the role of the men in terms of fighting gender-based violence, men must start changing the conversation that they have when they're speaking about women, Madam Speaker. Example, men, when they discuss with other men, they must make remarks about the woman's body to extend the good when the woman, they even, they must change that, Madam Speaker. They must stop doing that if they would really want to help us in terms of fighting gender-based violence. Men must start taking initiative of reporting the abuse of women. Abuse of women verbally, abuse of women, rape, and things like that. They must start reporting, isn't it, if they really want to assist us in terms of fighting this women abuse. Boys from young age, Madam Speaker, they must be taught they should treat women with dignity and respect them. We understand that some of the women, Madam Speaker, they are masterminds in terms of killing other women. Because, for instance, Madam Speaker, if I know Guti other women is having an affair with my man, I'll hire a man to kill that. So we should really start changing our ways and start changing and start changing the way we raise our boy child and our boy children, women children. Start for the last, Madam Speaker, we should start reporting. We should break silence by reporting crime, reporting abuse of women. And lastly, Madam Speaker, I just want to appeal the justice system. You know, Madam Speaker, if you go to a police station and report about the abuse, they don't take you to a private room, they make you talk about how did he rape you, a charge of fees, standing and report at the end, case haina value. So that Mauya court aguna value, aguna evidence, aguna. If bangasi treat a nice kube ne room bathumele i-social worker or umuntu ahlale nawe phansi because traumatized, Madam Speaker, abuse it's not a small thing. So we are saying let us break the silence in terms of abusing women. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Ntate Silomake.
Thank you, Doctor. And thank you again for this opportunity, Madam Speaker, for for allowing us to air our views on this very serious matter. I mean, just touching on the men are trash thing, and the things that we say have and as that Shai basically expounded very well about it, and is that we say things and then people regurgitate them in their anger and use them. I think those are some of the things that we got to watch what we say, and because at this present moment, as far as I'm concerned, we need to get to a situation where we come up with solutions. We cannot be coming to these conversations all the time and regurgitating, the negativity that we already know and that we have spoken about at length. We need to come up with solutions. One of the things that I feel that probably maybe needs to happen, and that is to add on what that Deshai was saying, probably we need a TRC on gender-based violence, a TRC for men to get, to find spaces where they can talk, because whether we like it or not, I guess I would be wrong, but I think maybe 90% of us are guilty of it. And we need to get into a space where we can unburden ourselves, because one of the most important things, or one of the things that we neglect, is that when you start doing these things, you think at that moment you know better, but the truth of the matter is that you don't know any better, and I think we've got to start going through that whole process. We come from a history where we have actually forgiven people that have, meted horrible and heinous things on our nation for centuries. And somehow we have forgiven them, or we actually live side by side with them. But at this present moment, we cannot allow ourselves to get into a decent space and begin to talk to each other and look at where where we're going wrong and how we can fashion this thing. Because as long as we're going to keep these conversations separately or come to attack one another, this has been happening, as far as I know, for the past 20 years, in my involvement with this thing. Because I started getting involved in this thing since 1998. You know what I mean? It's over 20 years, and the conversation doesn't change. And basically, just to speak on the men's side, is that men need, spaces to be able to confess, to speak. And if maybe our government or whatever, or even the many movements, we've got Takwani Rime on one hand, we've got all others not in my name, we've got Act Now that was just born recently, and we create spaces for men to come and say, hey, I did this, and we offer counseling, going forward and begin the healing process. As we heal, we are going to be able even to extend that healing to our children. Because as this happens, our young boys are actually getting harmed by what we are doing. And it was going to need this generation to basically pave a path for the next coming generation. That next generation is not going to find it by itself. It's going to be impossible. Thank you.
All right. I want us to be solution orientated. Siyabulela. And I think we need to go back to the young people as well now. Tutukile and what's the other young lady now? Nomoya. But we must talk about what needs to be done. So a few people have sent some guide as to the kind of things that they should talk about. Yeah. Sebulela, can you say something? Then we go back to Turkile.
Unmute. Unmute yourself. Siyabulela is muted. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Doc. No, I just wanted to say that my battery is a bit low, so at any time Jay can just go off. But I want to say quickly that one of the things that we can do as mitigation factors is to open up the conversation around family and going back to the root and the importance, highlighting the importance of family. And if I think we can go to that, in a sense that, and I'm not talking about a traditional family, a mother and a father and kids. I'm talking about a family of community whereby umuntu omdala xa ebona umntana can still say, this is my child, even though they are not their biological kids or biological children. But I want to say also at this level, it's important that we form partnerships that will drive a process of change through programs. We cannot be tired of having programs, especially with boy children. Those of us who are here, we've got constituencies, we've got contacts, we've got networks. We need to start having those TRCs that Esel was talking about. Create a space, a safe space for men to talk, have conversations with boys and tell them that they can be positive people who will contribute positively in the development of this country. Secondly, we need to drive a process of changing policy, analyze and generate some evidence on what are some of the causes around this. Where you in now draw academics, you call your politicians, you call your activists, you call traditional leaders, you call religious leaders. Also, popular relevance. We need those of amongst us, those of us who've got a popular, who are more popular. We need to leverage on that. And I talk about people like Mtate Shai, they are well known, Brasilo, people know them. These are the people who we need to elevate in society in a sense that their voices are louder than ours. They need to come out very strongly. And I appreciate the fact that they've been doing that. So I feel like they should mobilize some of their colleagues, especially in entertainment, to do the same. And lastly, we need to continue with public pressure. I always hear people say we should stop demonstrating, we should stop marching. We cannot and we should not. I'll tell you what, in the work that I do, most of these demonstrations, even before they end, we get a group of men coming to you and say, I want to be part of this. I want to be a part of a process of change. So we cannot continue we cannot stop doing that because it drives also and it forms also as a mobilization tool. Lastly, there's two ways in which you can change human behavior. One, you can either manipulate it, or two, you can either inspire it. We need to start inspiring our boys. As I go back to the issue of messaging, we cannot continue with some of the messaging that we have been using. We need to inspire our boys and tell them that they can grow up to be positive people who are going to contribute positively in the community. And I'd just like to leave it there and say that family is important. We need to go back and preach the gospel of family in our communities. I thank you, Speaker. I thank you, Doc.
Okay, thank you. Can we go to Ms. Zuma? Solutions, if you can, please.
Yes.
Or ideas on how we can make an impact and change the narrative. Yeah.
Thank you. I think thank you for everybody's inputs. I think it was very informative. And I just want to touch a little bit on some of the solutions that we have. But before I say that, I think the sentiment is that we are exhausted. We are exhausted of going to court cases, having candle lights, reclaiming the night, going to demonstrations, and nothing changes. That is the overwhelming sentiment that we have. Of course, we appreciate that we have to continue the struggle of gender equality continues, but we are exhausted. And I think I'll talk a little bit about some of the smaller things and then some of maybe the bigger things that can be done. So I think the first thing, which I think is really important, is consistency. And Councillor Oldjohn spoke a little bit about this. It's gender-based violence. It's a topical issue. It's not a constant issue that is on everybody's minds and everybody's hearts all the time. It takes for a wealthy or beautiful young woman to pass away, or an extremely gruesome case of femicide for it to be on our tongues. But the reality of the situation is that every single day, in our communities, in our townships, in our rural areas, in our urban centers, in our houses. People are being killed on a regular basis. More especially, gender-based violence is being meted out against women on a regular basis. And I think particularly for media, it doesn't help to highlight cases once every 3 months. And then it's topical and then it dies down. But when it dies down, the perpetuation of gender-based violence and the continuing killing of young women is more especially doesn't die down. So we need to be consistent. This needs to be a consistent issue that is top priority on the table so that we are able to make sure that it gets the due and necessary attention that it deserves. So consistency is very important. The second one is to hold each other accountable. And I think a lot of people have spoken a bit about it. It's just to say that, look, the perpetrators of gender-based violence are not some men out there that arrived on a UFO. They are our brothers, our friends, our cousins, our comrades, our uncles, our boyfriends, our husbands, our fathers. And so it is upon ourselves, particularly when we are not the victim, to hold the perpetrators accountable, to hold our friends accountable, to hold our relatives accountable, particularly when you're in a position to do so. I think that's very important. And then the issue of socialization, I think people have spoken quite a bit about it. I won't touch much on it, about how you raise your girl children versus your boy children, and what you teach your children and young adults about marriage and what to tolerate, what not to tolerate. I also touched on it when I spoke earlier. Then some of the bigger things that can be done, I think it's very important that we have to establish 24-hour gender-based violence trauma centers where women can go, where women can go and they don't experience these kind of challenges of having to undress their most vulnerable moments in police stations in front of people who are not taking them seriously, in front of people who are ridiculing them, where there's no recourse for them. I mean, after the police station, where else can you go, you know? So we want centers where gender-based violence cases can be heard, almost like one-stop shops where you can get, where there are rape kits available, where you can have a police officer there to take your statements, and you don't have to be taken from pillar to post when you're trying to deal with the trauma that is upon you. Another thing is, we really think that it's time that we establish a special unit within our police that deals specifically with gender-based violence, who are trained on how to deal with cases of gender-based violence and who have an entirely different approach and dispensation around the policing and the law enforcing around cases of gender-based violence. And then the last point I want to make is on gender budgeting. And this is how we can fundamentally begin to change the power relations that make gender-based violence so prevalent within our society. Gender budgeting is not having a Department of Women and Disabilities and Youth, giving them a small budget and having them to run workshops and conferences around gender-based violence. Gender budgeting speaks to the mainstreaming of gender equity and equality in our society. For example, in a case where the country decides to do gender budgeting, you can give the Department of Transport, for example, give them money, put your money where your mouth is. How do we make the transportation system safer for women and more conducive for women, right? So you can then put money towards having panic buttons, making sure that points of transportation become places that are safe, especially at night. So how do we ensure that in all aspects of life, in the education system, we need to put in the curriculum ideas, challenging the normative ideas around gender roles that are sexist and toxic masculinity, challenging it from a young age. So I think, yeah, gender budgeting was just the last point as well. And I think we can continue the discussion around men are trash. I was talking more about solutions, so I won't touch on that. I think my views are known and we can continue the discussion on other platforms as well. Thank you.
Okay. Speaker, where's the speaker? I can't see her. Speaker?
Yes, Doc, I'm around.
Yes. We are at 6 o'clock now. We need to be focused towards solutions.
Yes, I thought you had noted no more, yeah? And then we have Muloisane when we close.
Okay. All right.
Maybe before we close, we can have Sipho just reading what our viewers have said.
No, that's fine. Let's give Nomoya. This is an important topic. Let's give Nomoya and even
Muloisane.
others. Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you, Doc. I think so when we call for structural and systematic implementation of policies, protocols, and procedures that are health, what we need to exist in our society. If we do not address the issue of the power relation, abuse will continue to reproduce itself in many ways. We need Doc to speak about eco pay at a workplace. We also need to speak about the eco treatment at a workplace of women and men. I would also want to appreciate the efforts that are done by some males, young activists, Abe community at Dorongop, who have started something which is called Itezi.
Your line, Nomoya, is failing you.
They meet nightly to discuss their issues. So-called now.
Yeah, you are audible.
Hello?
Yes, continue.
Hello?
Nomoya? Nomoya?
Okay, on the issue of the units that is supposed to be established in police stations, that I think I'm covered by Ucomrade Tutu.
Yeah.
And then to add on that,
Okay.
need to have
Nomoya, your line is really bad now.
In general,
yeah.
that will educate, because we spend more time sharpening.
Yeah.
Hello?
Hi, Nomoya, yeah, wrap up. Your line is quite bad.
Okay.
Okay, I think let's move on. Who else hasn't said anything to wrap up? We want us to wrap up, but talking solutions.
Commissioner Mazibuko.
Commissioner Mazibuko, please. You can give us your yeah, just wrap up from a solutions point.
Yes, the Gender Commission would like to partner with whoever Commissioner Mbuyiselo and Dateshai are working with DSD. But I think the main thing is working together. People are working in silos. So I think the city has given us a chance. Let's see to it that it works. And we should not wait to say there's no funds, there is COVID. Let's start the issue. Let's go and talk in the churches. Let's make this an issue in the Stokvels. Give solution, because all the other points have been given. And education is key. Let's educate one another. I think this platform is very good to say, let's charge the way forward. We should not just speak. We want results to say every 3 months, every quarter, let's report back to the city. Madam Speaker, this is a crucial start. Let's meet and say, how far have we gone? Because as the city, are going to put them together with a GOD to see the young people. And I think the solution can be taken. People with albinism were killed in this country. We had to stand up. Let's not say we are tired, we're exhausted. You can't be exhausted as a leader. You have to be speaking continuously until you hand over the baton. I want to encourage you you can't be exhausted. Let's give. This is a relay. Pass the baton to say, we are not going to allow it. You have put on very good suggestions to say, what is the safety? Date Shai, Date Pota, Date Silo, let's go together. Dr. Nyati, see to it that it doesn't end here today. Let's continue with the conversation. The platform is open. Thank you very much.
All right. All right, there's some hands that are up.
We had noted Butsilo.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker and Doctor. One of the solutions that we need to look at is to start with sensitization training. Start this training process where we train men to understand that women are not objects, and they should not be seen as objects that can be used for their sexual pleasure or boxing gloves. Secondly, we need to also look at the companies starting to introduce gender focal points for departments where people can start, women who are abused, because the abuse will start at home and a woman would not speak. So government departments, the private sector come together and start a gender focal point where women have a platform to speak, because continuous speaking and not having proper solutions is not going to help us. We need to start understanding that gender-based violence is an issue, not only amongst women, but in the LGBTIQ community.
Leave that, I'll just speak. One. Hello.
Right, I think we need to move on. There's Ntabi Singh. Ntabi Singh, can you have a solution-orientated contribution, please?
Thank you. I just want to concur with Commissioner Mazbuko and Commissioner Porter. I just wanted to just make a very simple point. I think this is a very innovative and also very much needed webinar. I think the element of focusing on young men, particularly men as well, and I think the element of prevention strategies is something we have not necessarily successfully emphasized. I think the focus is necessary on the justice cluster, the efficacy of the justice cluster. But I think that the key elements of changing behavior and changing families and working with families and community levels is something that we have not necessarily looked at the extent that we need to, so that we prevent rather than we respond to the issues that we see on the ground. So I think what Commissioner Mazbuko, I'm at the CG as well, one of the commissioners, and I think we need to partner with these institutions to massify prevention strategies. And I think that's what we are missing as a country. Can we look at partnering with all these institutions that are on the ground right now, the civil societies that are specifically looking at, I've been listening the last 2 hours at the prevention mechanisms for young men, for the boy child, for men who are also perpetrators, by the way. I like the point made by, I think, Patrick Shai, that men who are perpetrators need to actually come out, own up to the weaknesses, the flaws, and the problems that have led them to being on this, and to being like this. And I think that it's imperative that this is massified, because if we look at the statistics and the incidence of GBV, sexual violence and molestation, it is quite clear that in every family you might have a perpetrator. Deal with this at a family level, at a community level. And I think some of the interventions that are proposed are very, I think some of the evidence-based and some we need to test, because we have a unique situation in South Africa. So I think we need the context of, I don't know how we get the context of all the institutions that are partnering. I think Comporta is well.
Ntaga will make them available.
Sure. And I think that we need to look at massifying beyond just one community or one city, one urban area. But I think in the country, with these institutions, with methods that have worked, and we roll them out. And I think we need to take the responsibility as society. It cannot only be the government, it cannot be the police alone. It has to be really about changing the mindsets and the behavior. And I think we need a much more sensitive approach. And I think the other aspect is the healing. I think a lot of evidence is showing us that perpetrators of violence have themselves been violated, or they've seen it. So the prevalence of you being in a situation of systemic abuse, if you have seen it, even as a woman, it heightens the likelihood of it.
Yeah.
And also you being a victim of sexual violence or sexual abuse, even as a man or a woman, you can then become, it's kind of what they call generational.
Yes.
So we have to break that thing. And in order to break that thing, there's a need for healing. So if we are in this current generation now where we have the numbers that we are seeing. I won't mention the statistics. The statistics we all know are very good. If all these people have been victims, now think about the next layer, the next generation. Are they now going to perpetrate what has happened to them? So if we don't quell this thing and we start looking at how do we bring systems, methods, and I think training, whether it's through education, through the different FBOs, all the structures that are there, civil society, to bring healing to victims, one, and also to those who are have been affected. So I think those are the two-pronged strategies that I want to add, because I do support the justice efficacy as well. Thank you so much.
Okay. Just before Sipho just shares some of the stuff that's coming from those who've been watching for the last 2 hours, I just want to read a speaker. Earlier today I came across some message or comment by an advisor to the Premier in the KZN, Ms. Linda Zama. She said, maybe the responsibility lies with all of us, our mothers, absent fathers, dysfunctional families, and communities that have no social structures, churches that seem to have ignored the importance of being relevant in daily lives. If the foundation is shaky, obviously the house finally cracks. Maybe we're looking at the wrong places, because each person needs to take responsibility for the rottenness we witness. Violence, trauma, and all emotions are experienced long before a baby is born. All of us need to ask ourselves tough questions about conditioning, trauma, emotional and mental health, even before the babies are born into the violent and families that are devoid of love. The healing starts with each one of us. No amount of praying, marching, condemnation will heal our communities, other than us being healed to heal others. Those who are sick, including us women, cannot heal ourselves unless we are healed, unless we live lovingly. So I just thought that's just another, view from somebody where we were talking about the same issue. Yeah, who has not had a comment? Okay, I think Sipho, can you just share some information? At past, we need to cut the conversation.
Okay. Thank you very much, Doc, and thank you very much to all the speakers, and thank you for the inputs. Very good indeed. Some more inputs coming from social media, particularly on Facebook. Rebecca Muloi says, Black man is a protector, a lover, but nowadays, dinto di chenchili. Elias says, good afternoon, speaker and the team. As men, we need to normalize walking away from heated arguments, more especially when women are involved. And let's teach our boys from the early age to love and respect women, and also to teach women to support each other in most cases. Jabulani Baloi says, these concepts are beautifully explained. And the rest of the other conversations were really about the signal that was lost and the connection that came out, and also people just appreciating the comments. So I won't go into details with those who are just saying thank you for the comments. Eye-opening discussions indeed. That's it from my side.
Okay, Baumbuiselo, your parting shot.
Thank you so much, colleagues. I think that I have three things that I want to suggest. And the one I spoke to had to deal with a speaker. I think you have a responsibility with your colleagues to put money where your mouth is. And I have challenged the speaker to say that it can't just be a once-off. It can't just be a flash in the pan. By that I mean it can't be a once-off, that we're doing this because we are idling, we're doing this because we are responding to a particular crisis. It has to be something that you institutionalize in your work. Speaker, imagine what would happen if all in your, in all of your work, Speaker, there are, and I want to say there are conversations of men, for men by men, where you put resources aside. I mean, in Alexander, I mean, in Douglas Day, in Soweto, all of those places. That's the one thing, Speaker, that concretely you could do to say that it can't be business as usual. But secondly, is that it's important, colleagues, that we make sure that the policing is effective. And Dr. Nyati, I'll tell you what, if perpetrators of GBV, of rape, they know that there is a possibility of being arrested and it's high, the likelihood that it will diminish. So the point I'm making is that our police men and women must in fact ensure that a John Soap, each and every man in South Africa, knows that I will be arrested. But for as long as there's this sense of that I can get away literally with murder, we are likely not to stop it. Finally, Dr. Nyati, Speaker, I think that the schools must be open for these dialogues. We are missing, the schools must be open to these dialogues. The crutches, early childhood, we forget that. Imagine what would happen, Dr. Nyati, if we are able to get involved at our crutches, if we are able to get involved at our, Sunday schools, the madrasas, those of Islamic faith. Imagine what would happen if every Friday, every day, the madrasas are taught differently. Young boys who are Muslims, young boys who are Jews, they're taught differently. And I think that, Chairperson, then lastly, is that these institutions, traditional leadership, Speaker, we have to make resources available that we speak to traditional leaders in our society and look at, if we talk to Trinity, going to the mountains, the things that are taught there, we must begin to interrogate them. We must begin to challenge these practices. And we can only do that when we approach different municipalities in the council, where councillors who are men who have gone to the mountain. And I know that you and I, Dr. Nyati, had an elaborate discussion that we must begin these uncomfortable, unconventional discussions if we are to go ahead in stopping violence. Because lastly, women don't violate themselves, women don't rape themselves. So these institutions, all of them, we are culpable. And when we are quiet, when we are silent, in fact, we are conniving, we are condoning all of these practices. Thank you, Dr. Nyati and Speaker.
Thank you. Tanya Oljon, any parting shots? Tanya?
Yes. Now, look, I agree with all the speakers. There is in every which way, but I am still emphasizing it should really start at the ECDs, at the creches, and we must, like Tutu said, that it should become one of our, in schools, we must have a curriculum that talks about these things to make sure that our kids from an early age understand what this gender-based violence is all about.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Maggie Macheke, your parting shots. Maggie Macheke.
Me?
Yeah, your parting shots, please.
Am I there?
Yes.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for this very informative session. I'm one of the people who deals with gender-based violence issues, and I was invited by a friend. I've learned so much, and I've been making notes. So I will be in contact with Uses Nongebo, which I've sent an inbox privately. So yes, I've learned a lot. And I think this is the time that we actually need to go forward and talk, because so much is happening. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Tsidi Mfigwe, your parting shots. Tsidi Mfigwe. TD Mfikwe. Okay, I think we will move on. We need to wrap up. There's Her Royal Highness Nikki Webam.
Greetings, Doc.
Yeah, please. Can you have your say as we wrap up?
I'm sorry for joining the conversation very late. I missed a lot of things that have been said, but my interest is having dialogues with young women around Berea so that we can maybe empower each other and talk about issues so that we can have support groups. And I'm also an educator, so I would really love to support even education-wise, especially high school learners, so that they don't have to stress and get frustrated during this time. So that is my interest at the moment. I'm staying here in Berea, and I would really like to assist and support young women. And maybe we can come up with some programs that can support them and raise alarms. So whenever someone is in trouble, they can always come up and speak to us.
I think the Speaker's office will, reach out to you, or you should actually reach out with the Speaker's office and see if you can be directed to the relevant spaces. Madumelana M. Madumelana M. Okay. Speaker, I think you need to wrap up. We've lost a few people already because of other commitments. Mr. Silo Matiangube had to go and prepare for the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much, Doc, and thank you very much to all the panelists, and thank you very much to all our viewers who have been following us. I know that some of your comments, we could not go through them. We could not read them, but we are noting your comments. There are a number of things, colleagues, panelists, that you have mentioned, especially on charting the way forward. On this, what I can say is that this is a societal problem, and it needs the society to tackle it. And it is also not an overnight thing that we can just come up with an overnight solution. You have already said that we need to champion the changing of mindsets, and the changing of mindset is not an overnight thing. So it's a process. Healing is a process. Changing the generational curse, as Ntabiseng Muliko has correctly said, and thank you for coming, ma'am. We really appreciate your presence. But it's a process that all of us, we need to work on. We need to hold hands together. I think it was Patrick Shai mentioning that as a parent, you need to know where your child is and what your child is doing and the whereabouts. He made an example that as a father or a mother, you need to know who your son is dating. And I must say that Doc is an example of that. I attended one of the sessions where Doc introduced her son's date. So, so he's one of those examples of dates. But I think overall, the panelists are saying we should continue with not only with the discussions, but with implementation of the actions and implementation of the proposals that have been made here, but together as a society. Like I said, that this is a societal problem. So with those words, I really want to thank everyone who attended this session, and because time is against us, but if we had more time, I'm sure that we would really talk about these issues, but we are agreeing to the proposals, especially the partnerships, the TRCs that have been suggested by Ubuti Usillo Magega Nube. that we need to have conversations. Before, in my previous life as the MMC for Health and Social Development, together with Abobabu Patrick Shai, we had formed the men's forums, where we were saying men must converse amongst themselves and have men's izimbizo. So I think we need to revive those izimbizos so that men can converse among themselves and talk about, amongst themselves. But we are agreeing, and July being the men's month as well as Mandela's month, I think we can have more programs starting from this month of men, which is July, and attending the imbizos that Babu Shai has spoken about. So with those words, I see Doc, you had called Tidim Fikwe. I saw she's raising a hand there. I'm not sure whether we still have 1 minute that we can.
I can't see her.
I can see her there at the corner. She's raising. She's there. She was not there when you called her.
To do it. Hi, Speaker. What do you want me to do? Hello.
Okay. All right. I think we need to wrap up, but I just want to say that one thing that was not really raised here, Speaker, is the role of companies or employers in the fight against GBV. Before I came to this meeting, I went to Coca-Cola Beverages South Africa, and the MD of that company has started a program called Men of Honor. This program was launched in October last year, after all the stuff that was happening with Uyinene and everyone, and he decided that he wants to start where he has got influence. And right now that program is about almost 8 months old, and every quarter there are sessions of men talking to men about broken men, broken homes, the role of men in society, and all of that. And the hope is that those people become catalysts in their communities to actually change the narrative. So I think companies have got what we refer to as a CSI budget. They can use some of that CSI budget to actually help fund at community level some of the anti-GBV programs, but also start with the men within their own companies. So I thought there's one company that is leading the way, and I think other employers can also do the same. That's my parting shot.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Doc. Thank you so much. Let me thank all of you. We are only left with 1 minute to the closing time. Thank you to all our guests. Really, your contribution has been great, and I'm sure that the society and the people who are listening to this are having hope. We have actually given hope to our people. The scourge of violence against women and children, against LGBTIQ, it's a scourge that we have to fight together as a society. Doc, as always, thank you very much for your support to the office, support to the city, and support to the citizens of Johannesburg. You are an activist of civic education. Thank you, Butsillo Kanube. Thank you very much, Make Kanube. We really appreciate. Brapet, thank you so much. We are not ending here. After this meeting, after this session, we are going to have a session where we can put up programs, where we can work together. Siyabulela, thank you very much, my brother. We are together in this fight. Ntabi Seng, thank you very much. Our young women, Nomoya and Tutu, thank you very much. Councillor Mfikwe, thank you very much. I'm not sure where is Councillor Boko. I don't see her here, but thank you so much, Chairperson of GOD, for your contribution. Councillor Tanya Oljohn, thank you so much. Councillor Muloisane, thank you very much. Budbuiselo Botha, thank you so much. Nikki Webam, I know that you have joined late at the tail end, like Mfikwe, and I also saw Toivo Muhapi. Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you, and thank you to our viewers. We really appreciate it. This is a topic and this is a sketch that needs all of us, as I said, as a society. We need to work together, join hands, and say no to gender-based violence, and say enough is enough. Thank you very much, and you have a good evening.
Thank you, Speaker. Thanks, Ntatenyati.
Tutu, please give me a call.